Salutations, every pup, and welcome to chapter 44 of The One They Call Broccoli by Texiliaz. As always, the link to the fic will be in the description below. And with that out of the way, let's jump on into it. Chapter 44, Camino Aftermath. Author's Notes. Hello, everyone! Sorry it's been a while, but here we are with another chapter. I really hope you will enjoy this one. Thank you, Stu, for beta reading this chapter. Katsuki's point of view. They arrived at the hospital late into the night, but because of the villain attack, the place was in utter chaos. Thankfully, though, as hero students, he and Izuku still took priority and were rushed into their own little room far away from all the noise. He still clung to Izuku's smaller cat form and refused to let him go, even when they wanted to examine him. It had taken a while to explain the cat's appearance, and the hospital staff probably wouldn't have believed him if it weren't for the people in the ambulance backing him up. After all, who would believe that the cat was actually a heroic student? They were asked for their information, and Katsuki rambled off his mom and dad's info, as well as a number to the nerd's mom. It was a good thing the hag had made him memorize them when they were younger. He didn't bother telling them about Izuku's probably not living with his mom anymore, nor about him staying with their teachers. After all, Izuku had made it pretty clear he didn't want the pros to know about this side of him. So like hell was Katsuki gonna snitch or be the one to blow his cover? In the end, neither of them were severely injured and were patched up fairly quickly before they each got individual bracelets. Izuku looked ridiculous with his tiny bracelet wrapped around his front paw. Then Recovery Girl showed up, which was a surprise. Apparently, she had been called in once the battle had started going bad and they needed extra help treating all the civilians. "Now, what do we have here?" Recovery Girl asked, eyeing the cat in Katsuki's arms with interest. "None of your business!" Katsuki hissed, clutching Izuku closer to his chest. Stupid nerd had been asleep ever since they got into the ambulance and hadn't stirred at all. "I believe it is my business if it affects my patients," Recovery Girl shot back, as she moved to sit on a chair across from him. "The files say this room should hold both you and Midoriya, is that correct?" she asked, looking through the clipboard in her hands. "That's right," Katsuki confirmed, still eyeing the woman with clear distrust. "So, where is he?" the woman huffed, probably with the way she kept glancing at the damn green cat, she probably already knew the answer. Katsuki only glared harder. "The nerd's right here," he muttered, motioning his head towards the cat still sleeping in his arms. "Oh my, was he hit with a quirk?" the old nurse asked, looking both worried and amused at the same time. It annoyed the hell out of Katsuki. Sure, the nerd had a tendency to get into some weird shit, but how could she be amused by this? "No, this is just his stupid, normal self," Katsuki snarled, letting some of his irritation bleed out, before he pointed an accusing finger at her. "And I know damn well you're under some secret G shit, so you can't tell anyone!" That had Recovery Girl pause, and she looked back at him for a long moment, probably expecting him to backtrack and tell her it was all a big joke. "He's normally like this?" she asked, sounding unsure. "Ask the hound dog, if you don't believe me. He knows. I'm pretty sure the rat of a principal knows too, but you can't tell anyone else," he told her firmly, grinning in triumph. He'd learn a thing or two about that secrecy plea from his talks with Hound Dog, after all. Recovery Girl looked awful conflicted, as she excused herself from the room, probably to make some calls. When she came back, she wore a tired and grim expression on her face. "Nezu and Hound Dog both confirmed Midoriya's condition," she told him with a sigh. "I suppose there's nothing more I can do other than heal you two, though I have some questions for Midoriya once he wakes up." "And you won't snitch? Not to the teachers or anyone else?" Katsuki asked, squinting his eyes at her distrustfully. "I won't," Recovery Girl huffed, as if offended by the question. "I'm a professional, after all. I won't share any of my patients' secrets, unless it is putting them or anyone else in danger. Now give me your hand so I can heal you," she said, holding out her hand to take Katsuki's own. After a bit of hesitation, Katsuki eventually complied, and the nurse quickly kissed the back of Katsuki's hand. She then turned to Izuku and placed a kiss on his forehead. Katsuki immediately felt tired, and he slumped back into the bed with a grumbled "thanks" before he fell asleep, still clutching the nerd tightly in his arms. The next time he woke up, it was to the feeling of something heavy laying on top of him, and Katsuki opened his eyes with a groan, ready to fight off whatever was holding him down, only to pause as he saw that Izuku was back to normal, still fast asleep, and curled up on top of him. "Oi! Wake up, you damn nerd!" Katsuki growled, face turning red from their position. He shook the other violently, startling the boy awake. As soon as Izuku realized he was lying on top of the other, he let out a squeak and threw himself back, falling off the bed in the process. The whole thing reminded him of when they used to have sleepovers as kids, and Katsuki couldn't help but laugh at the nostalgic sight. "Don't laugh, Kachan!" Izuku whined, as he got up from the floor. His face was bright red while he glared at him. That only made Katsuki laugh harder, much to Izuku's annoyance. "Ah, good, you're awake," Recovery Girl suddenly announced, as she walked into the room. They hadn't even heard her knock, with Kachan laughing so loudly. The old nurse took a few steps forward, before she finally seemed to notice Izuku, and she blinked a few times. "And I see you are back to normal," she added, much to Izuku's horror. "Wait, you know about—" he breathed out, face pale. "Yes, I saw your other form last night." Recovery Girl cut him off with a wave of her cane. "Nezu and Hound Dog both briefed me on your quirk, as well as you wanting to keep it a secret for some reason. I won't ask you why, since it is none of my business, but I do have some questions about your health." "Oh, that's fair," the nerd muttered, fidgeting with his fancy dress shirt and looking down at the floor as he moved to sit down in one of the chairs. They hadn't been given more than one bed, seeing how one of the patients was a cat. The nurse looked like she wanted to ask something, but glanced over at Katsuki uncertainly. Kachan knows I have two quirks, so, it's okay," Izuku said suddenly, gaining both of their attentions. "Well, that makes this easier," she sighed, sounding relieved as she also moved to sit down. "Now, about this quirk of yours." "Wait! You said your quirk was given to you by someone!" Katsuki suddenly shot up in bed, not even caring that he cut the old woman off as he glared at Izuku. "Don't tell me that super strength of yours comes from him!" Seriously, he had no idea why it had taken him this long to put the pieces together, but the more he thought about it, the more sense it made. Who else could give a quirkless person not just one, but two quirks, other than the person who was apparently planning on taking his own explosion away from him? "It's not from him!" Izuku was quick to argue, looking panicked as he frantically shook his head. "At least, not that quirk. Apparently, I'm quirkless. Or not? I don't know. Dad, all for one, seemed to believe I have a quirk which lets me hold several quirks. He gave me the cat quirk when I was young, but it didn't activate until I was 12. "So you got two different quirks given to you by two different people?" Katsuki huffed, crossing his arms as he glared hard at the other. This was all very hard to believe. "Technically speaking, I have 8 different quirks, if you count the ones given to me from the ghosts in my head," Izuku said sheepishly, with a small smile on his face. Wait, you weren't kidding about the ghosts?" Katsuki gaped at him, while the other boy just laughed. It was a carefree laugh, and it took Katsuki by surprise hearing it. When was the last time he heard Izuku laugh like that? The sound of a throat clearing had them all pause, and they looked over to find Recovery Girl watching them, looking thoroughly annoyed. Now, boys, how about you save that for later? I did say I have some questions for Midoriya before I need to see my other patients," she told them with a sigh. "Sorry," Izuku apologized meekly, while Katsuki just huffed. "It's all right. But you did mention your quirk manifesting when you were 12. Have you seen a doctor since then? For your cat form, that is. Any medical issues I should be aware of?" At that, Izuku blushed, and he started fidgeting with his hands again. It annoyed Katsuki how he kept pulling at his already scarred fingers. Uh, um, no, sure. I mean, one of the people I'm staying with tried to take me to the vet once, but I didn't want to go," the boy said with a grimace and a blush on his face. Katsuki's had the sudden mental image of their teacher trying to take Izuku to the vet, and he had to fight the urge to laugh. The shit this nerd gets up to. Why not? Recovery Girl asked, looking weirdly concerned for some reason. They don't, um, they don't exactly know I'm human, and I didn't want them to learn the truth, Izuku explained. The wording had Katsuki suddenly perked up. He said he didn't want them to know. Does that mean he wants to tell them now? Has the nerd changed his mind? I see. And have you ever been sick? Recovery Girl asked while she scribbled something down in her notes. Not really, Izuku answered with a shrug. Other than the occasional flu or, broken bones, just the usual. Broken bones hardly count as usual, Katsuki mothered, earning him a sheepish smile. Definitely not, Recovery Girl agreed with a huff, before looking down at the file in her hands with another sigh. Well, as long as there's no immediate problem, I think that's all I need to know. For now. You can always come to me if you have any issues. That goes for both of you. Thank you, Recovery Girl. Yeah, thanks. It's no problem. Now, I have other patients to attend to. A doctor should see you soon about being discharged. And with that, Recovery Girl left the room, leaving the two of them alone to wait. Izuku's point of view. Just as Recovery Girl had said, a doctor soon showed up and told them they were both healthy enough to be let go. They didn't talk much as they left the room, but the quiet also didn't feel uncomfortable either. It felt more like they didn't feel the need to talk, so they didn't, and that was that. To their surprise, Kachan's parents met them in the lobby, both of them rushing to their son's side and fronting over them. I'm fine, Kachan muttered, a small blush on his face as he waved off his parents' concern. His parents backed off, both frowning at their son in what Izuku could only assume was worry. They seemed to finally notice Izuku, and both adults paused, looking surprised. Izuku? Mitsuki asked, a smile growing on her face as she stepped towards him. Oh my, you've grown so much! I heard from Katsuki that you two are classmates now. However did you manage that, huh? Anyway, do you also need a ride back to UA? Izuku couldn't help the way he started shaking under all the attention. His aunt had always been nice, but there was also something deeply unsettling about her. Mostly with the way she would hit Kachan whenever no other adult was around. She would never hit Izuku, but she would also not hide the way she was hitting her son around Izuku. Before Izuku could answer, someone walked up to him and laid a hand on his shoulder, effectively gaining his attention. That won't be necessary, Shota answered for him. Immediately, relief filled his entire being, and he leaned into his dad's touch. That was until the man continued. After all, we have something to discuss with Midoriya. Izuku's stomach dropped at the tone of his voice. Why did his dad sound so angry? It probably sounded like his usual bored tone to anyone else, but Izuku had been around long enough to recognize the annoyance in his tone. Did I do something wrong? All right then, take care, Midoriya, Auntie Mitsuki said with a polite smile before ushering her son and husband out of the hospital. Before they left, Kachan shot him a worried look, but Izuku just waved him off with a nervous smile. The smile must not have been very reassuring, though, since it just made Kachan frown deeper. Once they were alone, Shota ushered him by the shoulder to follow him, and together they headed down the halls and into one of the patient rooms. There, they found Toshinori, heavily bandaged and laying in a bed, as well as Detective Tsukuuchi and Nezu sitting by his side. As soon as they stepped foot into the room, the others turned their attention to them. Toshinori visibly sagged in relief at the sight of him, while Tsukuuchi and Nezu both nodded in greeting. Ah, there you are! Nezu chirped, looking pleased to see him. What's going on? Izuku asked, feeling very nervous about the gathering of people. The detective usually didn't mean any good news for him. Nothing too serious, Nezu answered with a wave of his paw. But considering everything that happened, we wish to speak with you sooner rather than later. he said. He then gestured to one of the empty chairs surrounding the bed Toshi was laying in. Now come, sit down. We have much to talk about. Izuku did as he was told and sat down on one of the empty chairs. Shota joined him and sat down on the chair closest to Toshinori, with Nezu and Sukuuchi seated on the other side of the bed. Now then, to start off, how are you feeling? Detective Sukuuchi asked, having pulled out a small notepad and watching Izuku intently. All the attention made him squirm. I'm okay, Izuku answered meekly. Do I need to remind you of my quirk? The detective said with a sad smile. Izuku blushed at that and shook his head. No, I guess I'm a bit tired after everything. I just want to go home and sleep, he answered truthfully. The detective nodded at that, giving him a sympathetic look. I understand. We'll try to keep this short for today, he said softly before clearing his throat and continuing. Well then, I suppose the most pressing question is if you knew that All for One was your father. Before you were kidnapped, that is. Izuku bit his lip and shook his head before he remembered they needed a verbal answer. No, I had no idea, he answered, shaking his head a little at the reminder that he really was the son of that villain. There was a hand on his shoulder, and Izuku was a bit surprised to find Yoichi was the one who had reached out, now standing beside him and offering some comfort. Right. He may have an awful father, but he had an amazing uncle, too. I see. That must have been quite a shock then, Sukuuchi offered gently, guiding Izuku back to the moment. Yeah. There was a brief pause before the detective sighed and looked at him sadly. Midoriya, can you tell us what you remember about your father? At that, Izuku swallowed nervously. He started fidgeting with his hands. Truth be told, he didn't remember much of his father. Mostly just feelings. He was nice, he offered softly. At the disbelieving looks, Izuku continued. No, really, he was nice, Izuku insisted, tears welling up in his eyes. Hisashi? Or whatever his actual name. His real name is Hisashi, Yuichi suddenly cut in, making Izuku jump in his seat. Oh, Yoichi just confirmed his name as Hisashi? Izuku repeated, much to the other's surprise. Anyway, Dad, Hisashi, would always play with me, he told them with a faint smile, as memories long forgotten started flooding into him. He, um, he would read me bedtime stories, and, he would hum while he worked and sneak me some snacks when Mom wasn't looking. Izuku swallowed, suddenly feeling like it was getting hard to breathe. He was really, really nice. Izuku's voice cracked, and he ducked his head as he started sobbing. My boy, Toshinori whispered, sounding close to tears himself. I'm sorry, Izuku sobbed, unsure what he was even apologizing for. I, I don't know. I just don't understand. He left us, and it was because he found Nana's grandkid. He left us. He left me for that. To, just to destroy a child just for some stupid plan to hurt Toshi. Toshinori flinched at that last part. Izuku was glowing again, and he was muttering, voices overlapping each other. It's okay. Deep breaths. You're fine. We're fine. The voices were saying. Carefully, Izuku took a deep breath, feeling oddly calm and disconnected from his own body. The boy then turned to Toshinori, eyes still glowing with one for all. I'm really sorry, Toshi. I'm not blaming you for any of this, I promise. Please don't blame yourself. Nana's voice spoke over the others. Toshinori choked up at the sound of her voice, even though it was mangled and overlapped with the other vestiges. Nana, Toshinori sobbed, hand reaching out and grabbing hold of Izuku's own smaller hand. I am so very sorry. I know it was your wish to leave your child alone, but if I had known... You couldn't have known, Nana said with a shake of her head. None of us could have predicted that he would find them, and I don't blame you, nor Sarahiko, all right? I understand, Toshinori sighed, still looking incredibly sad. Nana gave him a sad smile. Now, we might have failed my child, but let's not make the same mistake with yours. All right? Suddenly, Izuku was back in control and he yanked his hand out of Toshinori's grip with a grasp, blushing a furious red. Toshinori just laughed, both at Nana's words and Izuku's reaction. I will try not to, he promised, causing Izuku to blush even more. I'm sorry to break the moment, Sakuuchi said, clearing his throat. But, Midoriya, do you know where your mother is right now? Huh? No, I haven't had any contact with her. Why? Izuku asked, feeling disoriented and rubbing his hand. He already missed the warmth from that bigger hand wrapped around his. The others shared a grim look, and he felt his stomach sink. What happened? A few days... A few days ago, Midoriya Inko went missing, Nezu explained slowly. She was last seen entering her home, but never stepped out. We believe All for One might have done something to her. That's... Izuku took in a sudden breath, almost choking as he remembered something. All for One... He used a quirk similar to hers. The already serious expression on the detective's face turned even darker. Do you believe it's possible he did something to her? I... I guess. I don't understand why, though. He seemed really fond of her. Or at least, he was fond until I told him... Izuku cut himself off, feeling all the color drain from his face. Midoriya? What did you tell him? Izuku pressed, face grim. I told him she was neglecting me. Oh god, did he attack her because of what I said? He wheezed out, panic filling him at the thought. Sure, she hadn't exactly been a great mother, but he never wanted something bad to happen to her. None of this is your fault, my boy, Toshinori told him firmly. Whatever that bastard did was his own actions. I agree, Nezu cut in, tail twitching behind him. But this is rather troublesome. With one parent in prison and the other one missing, we will have to decide what to do with you. Izuku tensed at that, wondering what this would mean for him. That being said, there was already a case open to have your custody transferred to UA, if that's something you want. He then paused, glancing between all of them. I do believe most of our teachers have a license to take in foster kids as well, though I suspect 2 of them have already made their claim. At that, Nezu shot both of his teachers with a knowing look, and despite himself, Izuku felt a small glimmer of hope spark inside of him, especially once he noticed the bright smile on Toshinori's face. Of course! We would love to take you in, my boy, he answered immediately before turning to his husband. Right, Shota? Everyone's attention turned to the quiet man, who looked tense and almost sick. Shota? Toshinori asked wordly, which finally snapped Shota out of whatever that was. He hesitated for a moment, before clearing his throat. Of course, we won't leave you all alone, Midoriya, he said, though he definitely didn't sound as joyful as Toshinori. And while Izuku should feel relieved, he couldn't shake the feeling that Shota said it because he somehow had to. Do they not want me anymore? As if they could hear his thoughts, the vestiges started showering him with reassurance. Don't worry, kiddo. They definitely want you in their lives. Shota would never agree to anything he didn't want. Yeah, I'm sure he's just still shaken up about everything that happened. Then it's decided then, Nezu said with a clap of his paws, though Izuku definitely noticed the way he kept glancing over at Shota, as if he also noticed something was wrong but couldn't say what. I will start working on the process right away. For now, though, how about we head over to the police station to leave a proper statement. Then we can head back to UA so you can rest. Yes, please, Izuku said, shooting his mentor a relieved smile. Good. Now then, Aizawa, Yaki, please take care, Nezu said politely as he got out of his chair and took Izuku by the hand, before leading him to the door. Sukuuchi right at their heel. "We'll see you later, my boy," Toshinori called out after them. Izuku smiled back at his dad, before his eyes traveled over to Shota, who was staring down at the floor with a tense expression on his face. Another tug at his hand pulled Izuku out of his thoughts, and he dutifully followed Nezu out of the room. "Does he not want me anymore?" Izuku asked the mammal quietly as they walked through the hallways. A normal human would probably not be able to pick up his quiet voice, but Nezu heard him clearly. "I'm sure Aizawa has a lot on his mind right now, but I am also certain that he would never abandon you. Try not to worry, all right?" "Okay," Izuku answered softly. Shota's point of view. "Okay, so what was that?" Toshinori all but demanded, as soon as they were alone. "Why did you hesitate about taking young Midoriya in?" I... I don't know," Shota sighed, running a shaking hand through his hair. "It's complicated. I don't want to leave him alone, but I honestly don't know if we should take in the kid right now. Not before we talk about some things first." "You..." Toshinori took a deep breath, looking shocked. "You don't know if you still want to take him in? Why?" Uh, I... It's just complicated," Shota repeated, feeling frustrated, both at himself for not being able to explain and this whole situation. "Is it because he's the child of all for one?" his husband asked. "Because I highly believe if I can overlook that, so should you," Toshinori huffed, crossing his bandaged arms and giving Shota a disapproving look. "It's not that," Shota sighed with a shake of his head. "Then what is it?" Toshinori barked, clearly frustrated. "What reason could you possibly have to hesitate now? We've been working on this for months, and right after I promised Nana that we would look after him too." Shota flinched and curled into himself. Why was this so difficult? Why couldn't he just tell him about Izuku's quirk? Just say, "Hey, our kid is also our cat, and I think we need to talk about that." "There's just his quirk," Shota started, only to get interrupted by a nurse knocking on the door and walking into the room. She ran some tests on Toshinori. Both men were quiet and tense the whole time. Then, once she finally left, Shota sighed again. "Look, I don't think this is the place to tell you, but I'll tell you tonight, once we're home." "You better," Toshinori huffed. Izuku's point of view. They'd spent quite a long time at the station, where Izuku had to recount the last few days to Tsukuuchi. Nezu had stayed at his side the whole time, which Izuku was really grateful for. By the time they were finished, it had already gotten dark and Izuku felt exhausted. He even managed to fall asleep in Nezu's car on their way back to the dorms. The mammal had woken him up as soon as they arrived, shaking his shoulder with a worried but also almost fond look on his face. "We have arrived," Nezu told him gently. "Do you need me to accompany you to your dorm, or will you be all right on your own?" Izuku yawned into his hand before looking around the dark courtyard. He could see the 1A dorm from here, and he figured he would be all right. Besides, "I'm never alone, Nezu-sensei," Izuku told him with a tired smile. That earned him a smile in return, and they both stepped out of the car. The vehicle then beeped before moving on its own towards the garage that was a bit further away. Izuku would never get used to seeing Nezu's self-driving car. "Well then, I suppose this is where we part ways. Good night, Midoriya," Nezu said cheerfully, though there was a worried tilt in his voice as he reached out to take his hand in his paw. "Good night, Nezu-sensei," Izuku answered, giving the paw a gentle squeeze before letting go. "And, thank you for, everything." "Always," Nezu said with a grin, his tail wagging happily behind him, before they parted ways and headed to their dorms. As soon as Izuku arrived back at the dorms, he was bombarded by his classmates. They were all worried and kept asking him if he was all right. Thankfully, Kachan had stood between them and, not so politely, told them to give him some fucking space! Izuku couldn't be more grateful for him at that moment. "I see you are back to normal again, Geralt," Suyu said to him, once they all had calmed down a little. Huh? What do you mean? Izuku asked between bites. They had saved some leftover dinner for him, and he was currently eating down in the lounge. He had decided to go over his time limit just a little in favor of spending some actual time with his classmates. I mean, the cat ears and tail are gone. Was it a villain's quirk, Kettle? The frog girl asked, with a tilt of her head. Izuku suddenly paled as he realized people had seen him like that. Yeah, a quirk. It was just a quirk, Izuku was quick to say, feeling nauseous as he tried to remember who he might have run into while like that. There had been Kota, Bakugo, Todoroki, oh god, several of his classmates who didn't know, and Shota. Had Shota noticed his new form? There was no way his dad hadn't realized the truth had he seen him. Was that why they didn't want him anymore? That had always been Izuku's biggest fear, but it wasn't supposed to actually happen! Before Izuku could panic any longer, the lounge door suddenly opened, causing everyone's attention to turn to the newcomers. All Might! Aizawa-sensei! You're back! Someone called out excitedly, causing Izuku to tense up. He couldn't help it. He was still nervous about the whole talk they had earlier. And you... Wow, All Might, I never expected you to be, well, you... Uraraka laughed awkwardly as they all took in his new skinny form. You could have just told us, since we all live together now. I'm afraid that was something I was not allowed to speak about. I apologize, though, for hiding it from you all. That's okay. We understand why you had to keep it a secret, Uraraka answered with a smile, which then slipped off her face and turned into something more of concern. But are you okay? I am fine, Toshinori answered with a laugh, only to get cut off by a cough that had everyone flinch. Just, still in recovery. Right, which is why you are heading straight to bed right now, Shota cut in as he started ushering his husband to their apartment. Wait a minute! Ashido suddenly gasped. Aizawa-sensei is married to All Might! Oh my gosh, that's so cute! You only just now realized it? Sarah laughed. Well, yeah, it wasn't like we'd seen them together before this. How are we supposed to know All Might was a skinny guy? And we're out. Shota sighed heavily. Remember curfew. I'll do my usual route later this evening. Remember that you all have school tomorrow. There was a chorus of, Yes, sensei, before the two men disappeared into their apartment, leaving the buzzing of their students behind. Later that night, Broccoli dragged his feet in returning to his dad's apartment. The fear of them knowing his identity was still strong, and he wasn't sure he would be able to handle it if they decided to throw him out. Steeling himself, Broccoli headed down the stairs and into the common area. By now, everyone had already gone to sleep. It was way past curfew, after all. Way later than Broccoli would usually come home. He sort of hoped his dads would already be asleep. But of course, he had no such luck. Almost as soon as Broccoli stepped through the cat door, he heard footsteps hurry down the hall. The next thing he knew, he was staring into the red eyes of Shota, the man's quirk being fully activated as he stared him down. Then, everything turned black. Author's notes. Normal people, let us have a calm conversation. Aizawa Shota, charging at the kid in full speed, quirk activated to force him to talk. So, what happened to Broccoli? Is he okay? Who knows? I do. And so will you, in the next chapter, lol, runs and hides. Anyway, please let me know what you think down in the comments. Every comment really helps me stay motivated. And, as always, thank you everyone for your continued patience, comments, and support. Hope you all have a wonderful day or night wherever you are in the world. And that's a wrap on chapter 44. That cliffhanger! Oh! Also, I really like the Bakugo redemption arc. It's been happening in the background. You haven't really seen it a lot, but it's been happening in the background, and then you get to see it full force in this chapter, because Katsuki's just like Izuku's full-blown protector now, because he's like, I ain't gonna let anything happen to this shitty nerd! He's my shitty nerd! Only I get to do stuff to him! You know? And it's so sweet. It's so sweet! Anyway. Please go show the original author Texiliaz some love. Please leave me a comment. I love reading your comments. They make me so happy. Please leave me specifically hate comments and I'll shout you out in the next video. Speaking of, shout out to Starkill Knight 6167. You were the only person to leave a hate comment on yesterday's video, so you're the only one getting a shout out. Spotlight! Anyway, I hope you pups enjoyed so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye, pups.